Chosen one, somewhere in this world behind doors you will never see, powerful people are speaking your name, not whispering it, speaking it with weight, with intention, with a kind of reverence usually reserved for those who have already proven themselves on the world stage. And here is what makes this moment extraordinary. They found you before you found them. They recognized you before you recognized yourself. Right now, as these words reach your consciousness, a decision is being finalized, contracts are being drafted, resources are being mobilized. And the subject of all this attention, the reason trillion-dollar minds have paused their relentless pursuit of the next big thing, is you. This is not motivation, this is not inspiration, this is notification. Consider this message the moment the universe decided to let you in on a secret that has been unfolding around you for longer than you know. What you are about to hear will challenge everything you believed about your place in this world. It will reframe every struggle, every betrayal, every sleepless night. By the end, you will understand why you had to go through all of it and why everything is about to change. Let me take you into that room, mahogany table, the kind that costs more than most people's homes. Around it sit individuals whose net worth could fund small nations. But these are not your typical billionaires. They are not obsessed with quarterly reports or stock prices. These are the rare ones, the ones who understand that true power is not measured in currency but in consciousness. They have spent years searching for something specific, someone specific. And after exhausting every resource available to the ultra-wealthy, after consulting the most sophisticated character assessment organizations on the planet, after employing teams of behavioral psychologists and what they privately call character archaeologists, they arrived at a single conclusion: that someone is you. Here is what they discovered. Your name carries a spiritual frequency that exists in only a fraction of the human population. Studies conducted by their private research teams revealed something remarkable about your psychological makeup. They call it inverse correlation behavior. When pressure increases, most people become selfish, self-protective, calculating. Their generosity contracts, their compassion shrinks, their true nature reveals itself in the worst possible ways. But you operate differently. Under pressure, you become more generous. When hurt, you become more compassionate. When betrayed, you become more discerning rather than more bitter. This pattern is so rare that their analysts initially believed the data was corrupted. They ran the assessments again. Same results. You are wired differently than almost everyone else on this planet. Behind closed doors, they gave you a code name, the Natural. This designation exists for individuals who demonstrate leadership qualities not through training or inheritance, but through organic character development forged in life's most challenging circumstances. Every other candidate they considered required extensive coaching, image management, strategic positioning. Someone had to teach them how to appear authentic. Someone had to train them to seem compassionate. But you simply need resources and platform. Your character has already crystallized through fires that no training program could ever replicate. The financial analysts in this group have run projections on what happens when someone with your psychological makeup gains access to significant resources. The models consistently show exponential positive impact across every metric they value: authentic influence, sustainable change, generational transformation, and what they call ripple effect multiplication. Unlike traditional power structures that concentrate wealth and influence, your pattern suggests you would naturally distribute both in ways that create lasting positive change. Their algorithms have never encountered someone whose projected impact trajectory looked quite like yours. It defied their existing models. It required them to create entirely new frameworks just to understand what you represent. One particularly influential voice in this circle has been advocating for you with an intensity that surprised everyone. This individual is known for making calculated decisions based purely on data, cold analysis, numbers and projections, but something changed. This person became emotionally invested in your selection after witnessing how you handled a situation that would have destroyed most people's faith in humanity. Instead of becoming bitter or cynical, you emerged more compassionate and wise. This response convinced them that you possess what is considered the rarest quality in leadership, the ability to transmute poison into medicine, to turn devastation into development, to transform what should have broken you into exactly what builds you. Now let me tell you about the competition. Because there was competition, serious competition. 3 final candidates emerged from their global search, and each represented a completely different approach to power, influence, and leadership. The first they called the King. This individual had built multiple successful enterprises, commanded respect in elite circles. The resume was flawless. The connections were influential. On paper, this looked like the obvious choice. The King could analyze market trends, predict economic shifts, and navigate political landscapes with remarkable precision. The language of power flowed naturally. Initial meetings were impressive, but then the deeper investigation began. Character forensics revealed something disturbing beneath that polished exterior. Every achievement in the King's portfolio came at the cost of someone else's well-being. Success had been built on a foundation of broken promises and discarded relationships. When economic storms hit, the King did not weather them with the team. People were thrown overboard for self-preservation. Giving was always calculated. Support was withdrawn the moment relationships stopped serving personal interests. The psychological profile that emerged showed someone who had mistaken manipulation for strategy, someone who measured worth by comparison rather than contribution. This transactional approach to human connection was exactly what these billionaires were determined to avoid. The second candidate was more dangerous because detection was harder. They called this one the bully. Charismatic energy that gets mistaken for authentic leadership. Teams could be rallied around ambitious visions. Impressive presentations created the appearance of dynamic progress. But underneath that exterior lived someone whose insecurity ran so deep that power could only be felt by making others feel powerless. The bully had mastered the art of disguising destructive patterns as necessary leadership strategies. Abuse was framed as tough love. Manipulation was presented as strategic thinking. Ego-driven decisions were sold as practical business sense. Investigation revealed a consistent pattern across every organization the bully had ever touched. Arrival would happen with impressive credentials and compelling promises. Initially, genuine enthusiasm would be inspired, but as the true nature emerged, morale would be systematically destroyed through emotional manipulation and psychological intimidation. Most disturbing was the relationship with failure and criticism. Instead of learning from setbacks, scapegoats were found. Instead of accepting feedback as a gift, anyone brave enough to offer it was punished. This pattern had left a trail of collapsed ventures, broken relationships, and traumatized individuals across an entire career trajectory. And then there was you. Initially, the analysts categorized you as the wounded healer, but as investigation deepened, they realized you represented something rarely encountered, someone who had learned to alchemize pain into wisdom without sacrificing strength in the process. Real trauma had been experienced, authentic betrayal endured, devastating loss survived, but instead of becoming smaller or crueler, something extraordinary had developed. The billionaires were particularly intrigued by what their analysts called your transformation trajectory. Unlike most people who either remain stuck in victimhood or swing to the opposite extreme of becoming perpetrators themselves, you found the narrow path between these destructive patterns. Your wounds became sources of wisdom rather than weapons of revenge. Here is what set you apart. It was not just your personal healing journey, it was how that healing naturally evolved into a gift for facilitating transformation in others. An almost supernatural ability had developed. Where others saw difficult personalities, you saw wounded souls. Where others encountered impossible people, you recognized frightened children in adult bodies. This perspective allowed response with compassion, even in situations where others would react with anger or judgment. The character assessment revealed something even more remarkable. Somehow you mastered the art of maintaining boundaries without building walls, of staying open-hearted without becoming naive, of helping others without losing yourself in the process. Every scar on your soul had become a source of strength rather than a weakness that could be exploited. Most importantly, personal suffering had been transmuted into collective service without any bitterness or resentment poisoning the process. Pain became pure medicine. Struggles became sources of strength for others. Victories became inspiration for those still fighting battles already won. This alchemical ability to transform poison into healing was exactly what these powerful people had been seeking, and they found it in you. What these powerful people did next would shock anyone who understood the scope of their resources. Public achievements or professional credentials were not simply reviewed. Character forensics was conducted, a deep investigation into the actual impact on every life touched. Private investigators who specialized in mapping social networks were employed. Behavioral analysts who could predict future actions based on past patterns were utilized. Impact trackers who follow the long-term effects of individual actions across entire communities were brought in. The goal was not to invade privacy, but to understand the true scope of influence. What was discovered was a web of positive impact extending far beyond conscious awareness. That person helped during crisis. That individual went on to help dozens of others using wisdom learned from interaction with you. That moment of encouragement offered to someone ready to give up. It prevented a tragedy and led to a life of service touching thousands. That act of forgiveness extended to someone who had caused harm. It broke a generational pattern of revenge and began healing where bitterness had lived for decades. The data painted a picture of what is termed unconscious leadership, a natural ability to catalyze positive change without trying to control outcomes or claim credit for results. Unlike traditional leaders who need titles, positions, and formal authority to influence others, transformation is inspired simply by being authentically yourself. People are drawn to your energy, healed by your presence, empowered by your example. When you helped that person during their darkest hour, it was seen. When you chose forgiveness over revenge in that situation that nearly destroyed faith in humanity, it was documented. When you continued showing up for others even while your own world was falling apart, careful note was taken. Every authentic act of love, every genuine moment of courage, every choice to lift others rather than step on them, all of it was witnessed and recorded by observers you never knew existed. The forensic analysis revealed what is called authentic influence patterns that distinguished you from every other candidate. Where others created dependency, independence was fostered. Where others demanded loyalty, respect was earned. Where others built empires, communities grew. Where others accumulated followers, leaders were developed. This organic approach to influence was exactly what was needed for the unprecedented opportunity being prepared. The psychological profiles showed fundamental differences in motivation between you and the other candidates. The king was driven by ego and the need to prove superiority over others. The bully was motivated by fear and the compulsion to control everything around them. But you are inspired by purpose, the desire to serve something greater than self. This distinction was crucial because the role being prepared required someone who could handle massive influence without being corrupted by it. The investigation went deeper than anyone expected. They examined what they called choice architecture, the pattern of decisions someone makes when faced with opportunities to either serve themselves or serve others. In every category, you scored in ranges previously considered theoretical rather than achievable. The analysts had to recalibrate their instruments. Their scales were not designed to measure someone like you. When they studied your pressure responses, they found something that contradicted decades of psychological research. Most people deteriorate under sustained stress. Their judgment becomes clouded. Their values become negotiable. Their character becomes fluid. But your character actually solidified under pressure, like carbon becoming diamond. The heat and pressure that should have crushed you instead transformed you into something far more valuable. They also examined what they call value consistency, whether someone's private actions align with public principles. Hidden cameras and secret observers were not used. Instead, the moments were studied when you believed no one was watching. The small decisions, the quiet choices, the private moments of integrity when taking the shortcut would have been so much easier. What they found was remarkable consistency. The person you present to the world is the same person you are when alone. This alignment between public image and private reality is extraordinarily rare. Most people they investigated showed significant gaps between who they claimed to be and who they actually were. But your character runs all the way through, like a word printed through a stick of rock. No matter where you cut, the same truth appears. Now here is where the story takes a turn. The same qualities that attracted these powerful allies also caught the attention of someone who saw your rise as a direct threat to their own ambitions. The bully discovered what was happening, and quiet acceptance of being passed over was not going to happen. A systematic campaign began behind the scenes to undermine your chances, not realizing that every move made was being observed and analyzed by the very people being targeted for influence. Subtle doubts about capabilities were spread, readiness for high-stakes situations was questioned, the compassionate nature was suggested as weakness, too soft for positions requiring difficult decisions. The sophistication of the campaign was impressive, but ultimately self-defeating, positioning as the more practical choice, while painting you as idealistic and unrealistic became the strategy. Experience with complex negotiations was highlighted, while suggesting emotional drive made serious responsibilities impossible to handle. Complicated, even mutual connections were recruited to whisper concerns about psychological stability, implying that past struggles created unreliability under pressure. What made this opposition particularly dangerous was sophisticated understanding of manipulation and political maneuvering. Skills never needed to develop because operation came from authenticity rather than strategy. How to make selfishness appear like pragmatism was known, how to disguise cruelty as strength, how to present manipulation as leadership. Games were being played that were not even recognized as games because that kind of thinking does not come naturally to you. But here is what the bully failed to understand. The supposed weaknesses were actually the greatest strengths. The tendency to consider decisions carefully was not indecisiveness, it was wisdom. The reluctance to rush into commitments was not fear, it was discernment. The habit of considering how actions would affect others was not weakness. It was exactly the kind of leadership the world desperately needs. The billionaires observing this dynamic were fascinated by what unfolded. The bully had been deliberately allowed to discover the selection process. The response would reveal everything needed to make the final decision. What needed to be seen was how you would handle sophisticated opposition from someone who understood the rules of power games that you had never needed to play. Would values be compromised to compete on their level? Or would a way be found to remain authentic while still protecting yourself and advancing your mission? This is when something extraordinary happened that sealed their decision in your favor. Instead of trying to fight the bully using those same tactics, something was demonstrated that showed a level of mastery these billionaires had never witnessed. Complete focus remained on purpose and mission, while negativity was allowed to expose itself naturally. What unfolded was like watching a martial arts master handle an aggressive opponent. Force was not met with force, rather the opponent's own energy was used against them while perfect balance was maintained. Every attempt to undermine actually highlighted authenticity by contrast. Every lie spread about character was immediately contradicted by people who knew you personally. Every effort to make you look weak only emphasized genuine strength. The billionaires were mesmerized by this response strategy, which was not really a strategy at all. It was a natural expression of character. Instead of defending through argument or attacking back, being yourself simply continued. Showing up with the same authentic energy kept happening. Serving others with the same generous heart kept happening, demonstrating the same principled decision-making that had caught attention in the first place kept happening. What made this even more impressive was that the attacks were not being ignored. A conscious choice was being made not to be diminished by them. When competence was questioned, the response was demonstrating excellence. When emotional nature was suggested as weakness, emotional intelligence enhancing decision-making was shown. When naivety was implied, wisdom from experience rather than cynicism was displayed. But the most stunning moment came when the bully made a critical miscalculation, in desperation to discredit you, attacking not just qualifications but character began. Lies were spread about the past and motivations. This is when something was revealed that left the billionaires speechless. Instead of becoming defensive or retaliating, genuine concern for the bully's well-being was actually expressed. Recognition came that destructive behavior was rooted in deep insecurity and fear. Rather than seeing an enemy to be defeated, a wounded person acting out pain in destructive ways was seen. This perspective allowed a response with what is called warrior compassion, the ability to protect yourself and others while still maintaining empathy for those who would cause harm. This response revealed something crucial to the observers. Authentic power had been developed, the kind that does not need to diminish others to shine brightly. Real strength comes not from crushing opposition, but from staying so aligned with purpose that opposition becomes irrelevant. This was exactly the kind of leadership needed for what was being planned. The bullies' campaign actually accelerated the selection process. A real-time demonstration was being witnessed of how challenges are handled, not by becoming like them, but by rising above the entire dynamic while maintaining integrity. The bullies' attacks intensified in the final weeks. Desperation created recklessness. Fabricated stories began circulating. Attempts to sabotage key relationships increased. The aggression became more obvious, more frantic, but something interesting happened during this period. The people who knew you began defending you without being asked. Character witnesses emerged organically. Those whose lives had been touched by your presence started speaking up. They shared stories of transformation, moments of encouragement, acts of service that had changed everything for them. The bullies' attempts to build a case against you were drowned out by a chorus of testimonials that could not have been orchestrated or manufactured. This spontaneous defense was perhaps the most powerful evidence of your authentic impact. The billionaires noted something else during this period. Your sleep did not suffer, your health did not deteriorate, your relationships did not become strained. While under attack from a sophisticated opponent with resources and cunning, you continued to thrive. This response to adversity was more impressive than any resume could have been. Most people being targeted by such a campaign would have shown signs of stress, would have become defensive, would have started playing the same games to protect themselves, but you remained centered, grounded, focused on what actually mattered, rather than being distracted by what did not. This ability to maintain equilibrium under fire demonstrated a level of psychological resilience they had never encountered in any previous candidate. This is the moment everything comes together. The final decision is being made. But what these powerful people are offering is not just an opportunity, it is a complete transformation of the ability to impact the world. Making you the leader of something that could influence millions of lives is the plan. Positioning you as the face of a movement that aligns perfectly with deepest purpose, the magnitude of what is prepared to be offered will take your breath away. This is not just about career advancement or financial improvement. This is about positioning you to become a catalyst for global transformation. Here is what is being prepared. First, immediate access to financial resources that will permanently remove the stress of survival from life. Focus can shift entirely to gifts rather than making ends meet. This is not just about paying bills. This is about providing the kind of abundance that turns you into a source of blessing for everyone around you. The amount being discussed would be life-changing, not just for you, but for everyone in your circle of influence. Second, a platform is being offered that will amplify your voice to reach people never accessible on your own, not just social media followers or email subscribers. Direct access to decision makers, influence wielders, and resource controllers who can help create systemic change rather than just individual transformation. Positioning to address global audiences, influence policy decisions, and shape cultural conversations at the highest levels is being discussed. Third, and most importantly, a protective infrastructure of brilliant minds who understand how to navigate the complexities of power without being corrupted by it is being provided. These are people who will help make strategic decisions while maintaining authenticity, who will shield from manipulation while keeping connection to the people meant to be served. Access to advisors who have guided world leaders, strategists who have shaped history, and protectors who specialize in preserving integrity under extreme pressure will be available. The team being assembled around you has been carefully selected based on complementary gifts. Where you lead with heart, others will handle the logistics. Where you inspire with vision, others will manage the details. Where you connect with souls, others will navigate systems. This support structure exists for one purpose: to ensure that your gifts can operate at maximum capacity without being burdened by the machinery required to sustain large-scale influence. Every person in this infrastructure believes in what you represent. They have seen what happens when authentic leaders gain access to real resources. They want to be part of what you will build. The resources being allocated include access to a network that spans industries and continents. Doors that have remained locked for others will open for you. Conversations that have been impossible to initiate will become readily available. Opportunities that seemed reserved for the privileged few will be extended with genuine enthusiasm. This network exists because of shared values, not transactional relationships. These are people who have been waiting for someone like you to emerge, someone they could support without compromising their own integrity, someone whose success would actually make the world better rather than simply making numbers larger. The timeline for this transition has been accelerated because of current global conditions. The world is hungry for a different kind of leadership. People are exhausted by manipulation disguised as strategy. They are tired of being treated as consumers rather than humans. They are desperate for voices that speak truth rather than spin. Your emergence at this particular moment is not coincidental. The timing is precise. The conditions are optimal. Everything has aligned to create a window of opportunity that may not exist again for generations. This is not just about making you successful. This is about making you a source of success for everyone whose life you touch. The infrastructure being created around you is designed to amplify not just your voice, but your ability to amplify others' voices. The resources being provided are not just for personal benefit, but to turn you into a conduit of abundance that flows to everyone in your orbit. The position being offered comes with something unprecedented: complete creative control over how to use the platform and resources provided. There are no corporate agendas to serve, no investors to please, no quotas to meet. The only requirement is remaining authentically yourself while using these tools to serve the greater good in whatever way your heart guides you. This level of trust and freedom has never been offered to anyone before. What is about to happen will feel surreal at first. The level of support, the magnitude of opportunity, the scale of platform, it will seem almost too extraordinary to be real, but it is not too extraordinary for you. It is exactly as extraordinary as you have prepared yourself to handle. Through every difficult moment that could have made you bitter, but instead made you better, every challenge that could have made you smaller, but instead made you stronger, every wound that could have made you cruel, but instead made you compassionate. The transition will happen in stages, not to test readiness which has already been established, but to allow proper integration of each new level of responsibility and resource. The first stage involves the removal of financial pressure and the establishment of basic support structures. The second stage introduces the platform and begins the process of voice amplification. The third stage connects you to the network of influence wielders and decision makers. Each stage builds on the previous one. Each level prepares for the next. The architecture of this transition has been designed by people who understand that sustainable success requires proper foundation. There will be moments of adjustment. The habits developed during seasons of scarcity will need updating for seasons of abundance. The protective mechanisms created during times of vulnerability will need releasing as genuine safety is established. The small thinking that was necessary for survival will need expanding to accommodate the new scale of possibility. This adjustment process is expected and supported. Advisors will be available to help navigate the psychological shifts required. Nothing about this transition has been left to chance. The people watching your emergence understand that what they are witnessing is historic, not just for you personally, but for what your success will demonstrate to the world. When you thrive in this role, it will prove that character-based leadership is not only possible but powerful. It will show that authenticity can succeed where manipulation eventually fails. It will demonstrate that serving others is not weakness but the ultimate expression of strength. Your victory will become evidence in an argument that has been raging for centuries. The argument about what kind of leadership actually works, what kind of influence actually lasts, what kind of power actually matters. The decision has been made about you, but there is also a decision that needs to be made by you, not whether to accept what is being offered. That acceptance is assumed by everyone in that room. The decision you need to make is about what you will do with what you receive, how you will steward the resources entrusted to you, which problems you will prioritize solving, which voices you will choose to amplify, which causes you will champion. This freedom of direction is the most valuable part of what is being offered, the ability to follow your own compass toward your own vision of a better world. As this revelation concludes, we return to where we began, that mahogany table, those powerful people, the weight of their decision. But now you understand that this weight was never heavy because it was burdensome. It was heavy because it was sacred. These powerful people were not just choosing someone to fill a position. They were recognizing someone who had already been chosen by life itself for something extraordinary. The healer you have become, the authentic leader you have developed into, the genuine soul you have remained despite every pressure to become something else. This is exactly what the world needs right now. Not another person who mistakes volume for authority, not another leader who confuses control with influence, not another voice that prioritizes image over impact. The world needs someone who leads from scars while maintaining strength, who serves from wounds without being defined by them, who creates more leaders rather than more followers. Everything endured was preparation for everything about to unfold. Every betrayal taught discernment of true intentions without breeding cynicism. Every loss showed what actually matters without creating bitterness about what does not. Every moment when love was chosen over fear, service over selfishness, truth over convenience, all of it was building the character needed to handle this level of responsibility without being corrupted by it. But remember this, elevation is not just for personal benefit. Positioning is happening to demonstrate that authentic power serves rather than dominates, that real influence lifts others rather than stepping on them, that genuine leadership creates more leaders rather than more followers. Success will prove that character still matters, that integrity still has power, that authenticity can still triumph in a world full of manipulation and pretense. The scales that seemed to be weighing you were actually weighing the world's readiness for your emergence. The jury that appeared to be deliberating worthiness was actually confirming what had already been proven through every test that mattered. The decision that felt uncertain was actually inevitable from the moment transformation was chosen over bitterness, healing over revenge, service over selfishness. The wounded healer archetype that has been embodied is one of the most powerful forces in the spiritual realm. Unlike those who help from superiority or theoretical knowledge, help comes from genuine understanding and hard-won wisdom. This authenticity creates a resonance that touches people's souls in ways conventional inspiration cannot. Scars have become sources of strength not just for yourself but for everyone who encounters your story. Remember this moment when the abundance starts flowing. Remember that this was earned not through manipulation or luck, but through the consistent choice to remain connected to highest values even when compromise would have been easier. Remember that elevation is happening not just for personal benefit, but so you can elevate others who are still fighting battles already won. Victory will become their hope, breakthrough will become their inspiration, transformation will become their proof that change is possible. The universe has been watching longer than these billionaires have. It has been keeping its own records, its own measurements, its own assessments. Every prayer whispered in the darkness was heard. Every tear cried when no one was looking was counted. Every moment of choosing love when hate would have been justified was noted. This cosmic ledger now tips in your favor. What was taken is being restored. What was broken is being healed. What was stolen is being returned with interest. The accounts are being settled, and the settlement is in your favor. The group of billionaires who seemed to be deciding your fate were actually just confirming what the universe had already determined. Choice happened long before evaluation began. Recognition was simply happening of what had already been decided by forces far greater than human wealth or influence. Character was forged in fires that could never be created, tested by pressures that could never be applied, proven through challenges that could never be designed. Those who doubted you will watch in wonder. Those who dismissed you will reconsider their judgments. Those who underestimated you will realize their mistake. But this is not about proving anyone wrong. This is not about vindication or revenge. This is simply about stepping into what was always meant to be occupied, the space created for you before you were born, the role designed for your specific gifts, the purpose crafted for your unique combination of wounds and wisdom. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random. And if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. Plown, the beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Your ancestors are watching this moment, the ones who struggled so that you could exist, the ones who survived impossible circumstances so that their bloodline could continue. The ones who dreamed of days they would never see. Their hopes live in you. Their sacrifices culminate in your emergence. When you rise, they rise with you. When you succeed, their struggles become validated. When you fulfill your purpose, their existence gains meaning across time. The time of struggle is ending. The season of influence is beginning. The era of impact has arrived. The transformer has been recognized, resourced and released into divine assignment. The authentic leader has been identified, empowered and positioned for maximum influence. The genuine soul has been discovered, celebrated and prepared for unprecedented platform. Everything that has been endured was worth it for what is coming next. Every tear cried, every battle fought, every mountain climbed, every valley walked through. All of it was preparation for the extraordinary life about to unfold. The best chapters have not been written yet, but the foundation for those chapters was laid through every challenging experience that could have defeated you, but instead developed you. The morning after this decision is finalized, the world will look different, not because it changed overnight, but because your eyes will see it differently. Possibilities that seemed impossible will become obvious. Connections that seemed unreachable will become accessible. Resources that seemed unavailable will become abundant. The same world, new vision, new capacity, new authority to move within it. Chosen one, what is coming next is going to be absolutely extraordinary. The decision has been made, the resources are being mobilized, the platform is being prepared, and the person who will change everything through authentic character and genuine service, that person is you. This is not the end of your story. This is where your real story begins, the one you were always meant to live, the one that will inspire generations, the one that proves once and for all that the universe knows exactly what it is doing when it chooses its champions. And chosen one, it chose you.